Today I want to get into a story in 1 Kings chapter 19 as we continue the series on thin places, those moments in life where heaven brushes earth, where we feel like the space between us and God is really, really narrow. It's just something divine or sacred about these moments. I want to look at one of those moments in the Bible in 1 Kings chapter 19. Beginning in verse 1, Ahab, that is a king, and his wife Jezebel, Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Well, I guess I'll pause there. He had slain 450 false prophets of the god Baal after he proved himself the servant of the true God. Okay, so some really crazy stuff just happened in chapter 18. And so now Ahab the king tells Jezebel the queen, his wife, all the stuff that Elijah, the great prophet of Yahweh, had done. And then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, "So may the gods do to me and more also if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." So that's an explicit threat. She's saying, if I don't murder you by tomorrow, then may the gods murder me. Then Elijah was afraid. So he arose and went for his life, and he came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and he left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. And he came and sat down under a broom tree, and he asked that he might die, saying, "It's enough now, O Lord. Just take away my life. I'm no better than my fathers." And he lay down, and he slept under a broom tree. And behold, an angel touched him and said to him, "Arise and eat." And he looked, and behold, there was at his head a cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. And he ate and he drank, and he lay down again. And the angel of the Lord came again a second time and touched him and said, "Arise and eat, else the journey will be too great for you." So he arose and he ate and he drank, and he went in the strength of that food for 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of God. There he came to a cave. He lodged there. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah said, "I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They've thrown down your altars, and they have slain your prophets with the sword. And I, just me, I'm the only one left, and now they seek my life to take it away." And God said, "Go forth, stand upon the mountain before the Lord." Behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind ripped through the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And then after the fire, a still, small voice. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle, and he went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah said, "I've been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken thy covenant. They've thrown down your altars, they've slain your prophets with the sword, and I'm the only one left, and now they seek my life to take it away." And the Lord said to him, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and when you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael to be king over Syria, and Jehu the son of Nimshi you shall anoint to be king over Israel, and Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel-Meholah you shall anoint to be the prophet in your place. And him who escapes from the sword of Hazael shall Jehu slay, and him who escapes from the sword of Jehu shall Elisha slay. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all those knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him." This is the word of the Lord, and we thank God for it. A couple of years ago, I had every reason to feel great. I was earning my doctoral degree. I had a beautiful, healthy family, and our church was seemingly healthy and even growing at a nice, slow, steady pace. There was a lot for me to be grateful for, and yet I felt off. My mood was shifting, my physical health and my sleep were declining, my marriage suffered, and I felt ashamed of it. It was really hard. I thought, with all this good stuff, all these blessings God has given me, why do I feel like this? Why is this happening? I kept trying to muscle through it. But thankfully, I had a wife, Kylie, who refused to give up on me, friends who quietly whispered support along the way. I had kids who forgave me quickly and reminded me that joy still existed in bubbles and sidewalk chalk and playing with the dog. And eventually, I went to therapy. I started facing a lot of things that I had buried in the past. I started healing. I didn't need another mountaintop experience. I was basically standing on a mountaintop when I felt so terrible. What I needed was space to sit in the silence. What I needed was to be less distracted by the views of the mountaintop and to listen for the voice of God. And it was hard. Elijah, I think, knew that journey. He knew it in ways that I'll never know. He went from fire collar from heaven, slaughtering 450 false prophets, to being a wimp hiding in a cave, saying, just take my life, I don't even want to be here. In a matter of verses, from one chapter to the next. I would say it turns out, the more I study these thin places, that the most sacred places in life tend to be places of silence, moments when we fall apart. So I want to start there. Thin places sometimes come in the fallout. And maybe you need to hear that today. In 1 Kings 18, Elijah stood tall on Mount Carmel. He called down fire from heaven. If you remember the story, all these false prophets of Baal were standing there too, and they lanced themselves. They were cutting themselves and spilling blood and crying out and chanting all hours of the day and night, waiting for their God. If I remember right, Baal-Merkuth, it was the god of lightning. They were waiting for their God to send lightning to start a fire, to prove that he was God. And they were crying out, hundreds of these prophets crying out and bleeding everywhere and chanting, and nothing happened. And then Elijah said, all on his own, he said, now I want you to take my little pile of sticks and I want you to douse it in buckets of fire, 12 buckets worth, to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. And then he said, basically, just so that all these people know who the real God is, God, you got to do something. And in that moment, God sent lightning so powerful that it burned the rocks underneath the lumber. And everyone was in awe. It was an amazing moment. Elijah was on a spiritual mountaintop. They said, the Lord, he is God. It was a climactic, undeniable victory for Elijah. And then in the next chapter, we find him hiding in a cave, on the run. Queen Jezebel is furious. She's vowed to kill Elijah. These prophets represent her God, or at least the gods that she worshiped. So he runs into the wilderness, into despair, into the edge of himself. Now, Jezebel, if you don't know some of that background, she was a pagan queen married into Israel with Ahab, the king. She is perhaps the most detestable female figure in the Bible, so it's fun to talk about her on Mother's Day. I didn't do that on purpose. It just happened. But she was enforcing Baal worship with royal power. She was killing all the prophets who dissented. She was intimidating anyone who tried to reform Israel, people like Elijah. She turned the people's hearts toward foreign gods, idols made of sticks and stones, representative of things like lightning and harvest and fertility and all the things people care about. Elijah was then one of the last prophets who publicly proclaimed Yahweh, the God of Israel. And yet, here he is collapsing under a broom tree, praying, God, I've had enough, just take my life. How does someone go from such a great height to such a deep valley so quickly? I think I now can understand that, but I'm not sure I could before. Maybe some of you have felt that too. How did I even get here? Why am I even here? What's the point? How does God respond? Not with rebuke. I think there's a little bit of passive aggression in there. What are you doing here, Elijah? But on the whole, God doesn't rebuke him. He He doesn't answer with more lightning from heaven and set a fire in front of him and threaten him. He says, eat some food and take a nap. And I am convinced that that might be one of the most theologically sound self-care plans found in Scripture. Eat a snack, take a nap. And I do mean to tell you that on this Mother's Day, okay? Eat a snack and take a nap, because it's good biblical advice. I wonder if you've ever hit that point where God's best advice to you is just eat something, lie down, and try again tomorrow. I don't know why we feel the need to solve every problem at every given moment, or to feel like we always have to be on top of our game. Where have you, I guess maybe you found this, where have you found yourself feeling like success didn't satisfy? Like you've achieved something and you still feel kind of hollow or empty. Maybe for you it did. Maybe the thing you were chasing was exactly what you thought it would be and you feel fantastic and you have felt that way ever since. But if you're like me or most everyone I've ever known, then when you have achieved things, you have a sense of emptiness that follows. Like you finally grabbed hold of the thing you thought would satisfy you and it isn't everything you hoped it would be. It's a weird feeling. And faith doesn't seem to fix it. We just start to feel kind of empty. You just sort of can't anymore. I mean, maybe that's a good way to put it. Have you ever hit a point in your life where you felt like you just couldn't anymore? And if so, then this story is for you. Elijah had climbed so high. He had obeyed every command. He preached. He stood firm. He showed God's power. He had victory on Mount Carmel. And now he's in free fall. He was on the mountaintop, and now he's falling. Have you ever noticed that? How it takes so long to climb the mountain, and then free fall is like that. It's crazy. It's crazy. Just a moment. You work for years to build a good and strong marriage, and then one mistake, one argument threatens to blow the whole thing up. You spend months healing from some trauma, and one bad day triggers you into a downward spiral. You spend years in recovery from your addiction, and one tiny little relapse, and you're checked into rehab all over again. It's wild, the way life works. You preach courage on Sunday, and you hear doubt whispering to you on Monday. Maybe, just maybe, that's where God is waiting for you. We assume God is in our moments of success, but I wonder how often God is waiting in the moments of silence. Elijah is a challenge to me as a prophet because I don't like silence, and I love success. But God's voice doesn't always come the way we expect. Elijah journeys to Mount Horeb. He's on the run from Jezebel, and he thinks, you know where I could go, where I would definitely hear from God, is where we always hear from God, Mount Horeb, or also known as Mount Sinai. This is where Moses heard from God. It's where he received the tablets. It's where God shone his light, and Moses was glowing afterwards. This is a big place, an important place, a sacred place. If there's a thin place, it's Mount Sinai. This is where God will show up. And so he goes. Elijah goes to Mount Horeb. And nothing happens. Actually, quite a few things happen, but not God, right? He ends up hiding in a cave there, and there are a lot of big things. There's a huge wind. There's a great fire and an earthquake, all this big, grandiose stuff. And it says each time, but God wasn't in it. All the things Elijah wanted to see, to feel, they were empty. There was no God in them. And then there's silence. Kol damama daka in Hebrew. Kol damama daka. It's not just a still small voice like we say in English. It's actually closer to the sound of silence. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I asked Kylie if people would get that reference, and she was like, probably not, but you should do it. It's your cheesy personality. Just go for it. Kol damama daka. It's the sound of silence. And that's where God is. He's in the empty place. or at least the place that we would think is empty, the place that feels hollow. And God is there. Because it's not emptiness, it's presence without volume. There doesn't have to be a lot of noise and pomp and circumstance. Not for God. God has nothing to prove to Elijah. And Elijah has already proved God to the people, and it wasn't enough. And so God comes to Elijah in the pit, essentially, in this case in a cave, and he says, I know you are in a low place, and I know you feel empty. But even when you feel empty, I'm still there. I'm always there. I wonder if you've ever mistaken silence for absence. And the God who whispers is also a God who waits. God doesn't shout Elijah out of the cave. He draws near and he says, what are you doing? What are you doing here? So he's already found Elijah under a broom tree, wishing to die, and he tells him to get up. He says, eat something, take a nap. Then he wakes him up again and says, eat a little more, and now you need to get on your way. And he sends him on his way, and he goes to the place where he thinks he's going to meet God, and then he doesn't really meet God the way he expects, and God says, I'm still here, I'm still with you, but you're waiting for the wrong thing. He asked him twice, what are you doing here? I don't think it's because God is confused. When God asks people questions multiple times, it's not because God is confused. It's because he's making a point. Why ask him twice? It's because Elijah needed to say it out loud. He needed to admit why he was there. He says, I've tried. I'm tired. I feel alone. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And God listens. There's no correction. There's no scolding. It's just God's presence. I think that's why Hudson likes Kylie better than me. That's not in my notes, but I just felt it in my bones. It just clicked in my brain, because when he comes to me, I always have some kind of answer. Some way to fix it, or some rebuke for him to quit doing whatever he's doing, but I certainly don't just sit with him there. But you know what Kylie does? She just says, come on, and he'll sit next to her and like, oh, mama. And he loves it. He's 5. It's okay. It's, for now, he can get away with that. I don't know how to just be present with people. It's hard. But God does. Bonhoeffer said, God waits in the quiet things, in the ache, in the discipline, in the listening. I wonder what you would say if God asked you that same question right now. What are you doing here? Not here in church this morning. Just what are you doing here? Like in the world, in your life, at this moment, what are you doing here? God is so patient, but his long suffering, his patience, like we said last week, it's not indifference, it's devotion, it's faithfulness. Elijah believed that he was alone, and God says, you're not alone. There are still 7,000 people who have not bowed the knee to Baal, meaning 7,000 other Israelites who are still firmly committed to me, who will risk their necks for me. You're not the only one. God gives him then a new mission, not anything flashy, just faithfulness. He says, go anoint a new king in Syria, and then anoint a new king in Israel, and then mentor your successor, Elisha, who will carry on your mantle as the prophet of God. Basically, he says, just keep going. Just keep going. Keep taking steps forward. That's all you can do sometimes, is take one more step forward. And here's the miracle. God doesn't rush Elijah. He meets him there, he stays with him, and he allows him to do this work at his own pace. God's slowness here is not hesitation, it's patience. He's faithful to his prophet Elijah. I think sometimes I expect God to shout me forward or sort of scare me forward with strikes of lightning or something like that, or to scream at me in the wind. I don't know what I expect, even metaphorically, but I think most often in my life, God has talked to me in the quiet, in still small voices, walking beside me when I'm just trying to catch my breath. I also learned from Elijah that sacred ground Thin places may not look like cathedrals, but might look like caves. Have you ever been in a cave? You can raise your hands. I guess I'm assuming you're raising them that you have been in a cave. Okay, so if you've been in a cave, it's not the most, it can be quite beautiful, but it's not the most pleasant place to be. I wouldn't want to live in a cave. It's quiet, it's dark, it's damp. It's lonely and isolating, even scary. And yet that's where Elijah meets God. And he doesn't leave that cave with all the answers that he's looking for. He leaves with some direction. Go on and do these things. Keep moving forward. And more importantly, he leaves with companionship. He leaves with God beside him, with a calling, with a whisper in his heart. I think some of the most sacred places you will ever walk in this world will not feel like mountaintop moments. They'll feel like caves, like quiet, humbling places, maybe even hidden places, maybe dark and damp places. And God will meet you there too. When I finally started going to therapy, I didn't get thunder and lightning from heaven. I got lots of quiet little breakthroughs, an occasional tear shed unexpectedly, a sentence that opened a door, a thought that I had never thought before, a spark for a conversation that really needed to happen and finally happened. My heart became softer. My compassion was growing, is growing. I began to listen better and care more. I was growing. I was becoming more full with the Spirit of God, I guess, but I didn't recognize exactly that that's what was happening as it was happening. But looking back, I see it. In those moments, I was just trying to get through. I just didn't want to quit, and I didn't know what else to do. If that's you this morning, you just need to push and take another step. I'm telling you that God is with you, that you can do it. Slowly, I started hearing the whisper. You're not alone. He never said there were 7,000 others. I'm afraid in my case, there are probably millions of others much worse off than me. But God was nice enough not to remind me of that. But he did remind me that I'm not totally broken. And that whatever is broken, he can mend, he can fix it, he can heal it. And often what God says to me now, it happened last night actually. He says, you're just tired. Eat a snack and go to bed. You'll be better tomorrow. And I'm still here. I had confused silence. I didn't think I was going to get choked up, sorry. I had confused silence with absence for a long time. And I would stand here and preach to people who believe that I'm some epitome of something spiritual. And yet I struggled to know if God was even really there in my life. I believe in God. I've always believed in God, but I just didn't know if I was doing anything right. And I thought that meant maybe he wasn't there. But I now know he just isn't always going to be in the fire and the thunder and the wind. I'm realizing I came to God because I wanted God-inspired earthquakes and things, powerful things in my life to impress people. I wanted people to cheer my name, and I never wanted to slaughter 450 false prophets, but I wanted people to think I was great. And once they did, it felt empty. It felt almost hypocritical. Not almost, it did feel hypocritical. It still does. But God doesn't leave. He never leaves. In fact, he waited until the noise subsided and I was forced into a cave, and he whispered to me there and said, I'm with you. And I've always been with you. Would you stand as we close? I want the band to come back up and not play anything yet. Come up, though. I want you to come up. That'll make it more awkward when it's quiet. I want all the awkwardness, okay? So hold your instruments, be prepared, but don't make a sound. We're going to do like a 30 seconds of silence, okay? Because I think it's good for you. I think it's good for me. Just a moment, 30 seconds. A moment of stillness, a moment of silence. But as we stand together, you could close your eyes if you want to. You could look at your neighbor awkwardly for 30 whole seconds. I don't care what you do. You could stare a hole through the back of the head of the person in front of you. But don't think too hard. Don't try to solve anything. Don't even try to pray. That seems counterintuitive to have a pastor tell you not to pray. But don't, okay? I just want you to just be for 30 seconds in this space, in the presence of God. Now I'm going to ask you to take a couple of deep, long breaths with me. Don't blow your coffee breath on your neighbor, though. If you are hiding in your own cave today, if all the loud answers have failed you and all you have left is silence, if the fire didn't fix it and the earthquake just shook you more than you intended, if the wind has just blown you from your own sense of self, then I hope you will stop running long enough to hear what you've been longing for. That you would recognize that God's voice has been there the whole time. May you discover with holy relief that silence is not empty, it is inhabited. And the whisper that you hear is love, refusing to give up on you. Amen.